Segment 2, Gold and Black Live, and always gracious with his time is Mike Bobinski with us. We try not to abuse it, but it's always informative and interesting. Mike, of course, Purdue's athletic director, and he's got things going on just about every day, I would say, in your world. But Mike, let's talk about first last night, Purdue men's basketball, an impressive performance up in Minneapolis, and you've seen a lot of basketball in your life, been the chair of the NCAA men's basketball committee. This is a very interesting Purdue men's basketball team and a storyline that continues to grow.
It is. I think the consensus nationally is that we're just a really enjoyable team to watch play because we do, we come at you in so many different ways. Zach obviously, and rightfully so, gets lots of attention because he's a tremendous player and he's a physically unique person and has an impact on the game. Whether we're going to him or not, the other team's always worried about Zach, and that's to our advantage. But I think the really interesting thing this year is how we've proven that we can beat you different ways. We can score lots of points, we can win games where defense and our ability to really defend at a high level, which has reemerged as a strength of ours, is a way that we can win a game. Last night we suffocated Minnesota early on, and I think they just lost their will to compete after a while, and that was all she wrote. But Braden last night, after having just an okay game, honestly, at Michigan State, where he really didn't look quite like the same guy he was last night. Boy, he was every bit of that guy. And if he really had looked for it, he could have scored 30, I think, if he just really went after it. So I think the fact that we've got so many different weapons, and I don't think it's any secret to those that watch. We probably have a couple guys right now that are struggling a little bit. They're not playing at their very best. If we can just get everybody back to sort of their baseline level of play, we become a really, really hard out. And I think it's just been really enjoyable to watch. And hard to argue with 18-1. Last time I checked, that's pretty darn good. By anybody's estimation, with one loss by a point. Unbelievable, great start so far.
You are the athletic director that has presided over the greatest start in Purdue basketball history. So I know you're there taking all the credit for it.
The fact that I have zero to do with it, I'll take it. I'll take it.
You look at with all your student athletes and trying to get that competitive edge and get people that want to compete. And we'll talk about Ryan Walters and what he's going to try to attract as well. But Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, on down the line, you've got guys that just appear that Matt Painter does, that just want to be competitive, and they want to be in the arena. That's a unique trait. It
is, and I think anybody in athletics always wants to win. Everybody wants to win, but I think when you find people, whether it be coaches or student athletes, that hate to lose and just will do anything possible to avoid that sick feeling of losing, then you've got something really special. And I think in some of those folks, the additions to our team this year, particularly Braden and Fletcher, those guys are wired to win and more wired to not lose, to do anything possible to not lose. And I think that has been evident in how they performed in really key moments here so far this year.
It's not your day job to have to sit on the committee and pick the or help select this 68 team field, but you certainly have a unique perspective. Look at the landscape this year, from the Big Ten on down. There's going to be multiple teams. Like how many? Who knows? But it's really a competitive year from top to bottom. It's going to be maybe a hard job for that. It's always a hard job for the selection committee, but maybe extra hard this year.
I do think it is, and this probably gets said more often than not, but I think it is really clear that, there are no sort of monolithic unbeatables out there this year. There's not like a team that's like, oh my God, they're head and shoulders above everybody else. I don't think there's any question that when we're playing at our, good to high level, we are without a doubt as good as anybody in the country. We should have no fear of taking anybody on, because I think we've proven that we can play at that level. Are there other really good teams? Yeah, Kansas is really good, Alabama's really good, Houston's really good, but we can play with all those folks, and there are more. That list goes on and on. But I do think it's an opportunity that the team that's playing the best here in March has a real chance to do something special.
Well, you have a number of initiatives and plates in the air on a daily basis, but one of the things that Ryan Walters, you made in a every football coach that you hire is an extremely important one. Yeah. Talk about just his month plus on the job. He's had to be a very busy young, and I say young because he's going to be 37 here this weekend, but this is a guy that's hit the ground running. Talk about what you've seen from him here in this first month.
You know, I've been incredibly pleased and impressed with the way Ryan has taken this job on from the very first day. He's, you know, as we went through the process, one of the things that struck me, and the parallel that I'll draw in my own mind and my own experience is when I hired Thad Mata from Butler way back in the day when I was over at Xavier. He was a young man at that point. He was in his 30s. But he had a maturity way beyond his chronological age, and that's one of the amongst the many characteristics that I sensed in Ryan was that same thing, where he has been consciously preparing for this opportunity for a whole bunch of years, and is you know, again, there will certainly be growing pains when you're a head coach for the first time, particularly at this level, but just his thoughtfulness, his preparation, his ability to have a plan and a strategy, it has been really impressive. You know, he's an incredibly intelligent and quick study. I mean, he reads the room, he reads the situation very quickly, and sort of has a natural instinct of what's the right move, what's the right thing to do, what's the right thing to say at this point in time, and then, you know, to extend that. You know, his interactions with our team early on, and now that we're in this semester where it's truly his team, have been really positive and productive. And I think our guys feel that renewed sort of energy and structure and sense of accountability and an expectation that everything we had hoped for from that perspective. And then the fellows that the team that he's assembling in terms of coaching staff and support staff, just, you know, really high quality, really great people, great energy, just a great sense of wanting to come here and accomplish something very special. And that goes, you know, not just from the coaching staff, but into the strength and conditioning staff, which again is the first impact and connection that our current team has is with the new strength staff. Right. And Kiara Small and the team that he's brought with him, I think have made an instant impact on our players. Again, Don Marino, we had a really good strength coach, but everybody comes with their own vibe and their own approach. And I think this has been really sort of a renewed sense of commitment and the work that's going to get done, and a new training philosophy, which, you know, everybody has their own version of that. But I think that our guys have really responded to the initial sort of approach. That first week of January was when school started. The first week of school in January 9th, that week was a discretionary week, you know, where there's no required activity. Well, the weight room was full every day, and you know, just electively, our guys were in there all day, every day, once they had a chance to be exposed to Kiero and his team. So they wanted to get off to a great start. They wanted to get acclimated to the training regimen and the approach. So it was a really good signal. And I think this week of really structured workouts that we've begun has been more of the same. So we're off to a really good start in lots of ways.
As we joked offline, I want in your memoirs, when you choose to write them, I want to know about the whole process and how you got to this, to Ryan. You got to him, and that's the important thing. But what in the interview process, was there a magic moment, or what, you know, when you talk to a guy that's not been a head coach, he's 36 years old. What are some of those benchmarks or key indicators that, boy, you've got the right guy? Was there that moment in that interview with Ryan?
Sure. So as we went through, Ryan on our list of folks we wanted to know more about from the very beginning. We had a dozen people, whatever the number was. Yeah. Some made it through and we had further conversation with remote, by Zoom, which is really one of the great uses of this tool, is to do those kind of things. And then some eliminated along the way, but for their own purposes or other reasons. But that's the way searches go.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that we had initial conversation with Ryan on a Friday night, and I lost track of days and all that, but it was obviously a December Friday night, about 8 o'clock or so. When we finished the hour and a half or whatever the conversation was, I got up and walked down to Tiffany Grimes' office and says, I'll euphemistically, I used a colorful term to say, man, I really liked what I heard there. I mean, I really was impressed by, his intelligence, his plan, his strategy, his understanding of our situation, and how we would move that forward. I think he's someone that we need to we're going to be serious about as we work through this. So he made it in a really positive first impression, and then was on that next round of now in-person conversations. Yeah. And when going through that one, when we walked out of those in-person meetings, it was the three of us that were together, all said unanimously that's the guy. That is the right person. I mean, it wasn't me saying, hey, I'm gonna, this is me and I'm gonna strong arm everybody into it. It was unanimous. And independently, we all arrived at the same place, that he is and looks and feels and is, in our opinion, the very best fit for us at this point in time. And again, I've seen nothing to this point that would convince me otherwise.
The three of you, was that you and Tiffany and Mike Berghoff? Who were the?
Those were the three that did the in-person conversation. Yes.
Yeah. When you look at that, and again, a guy that you don't know for sure that he can, because he hasn't done it yet, but you have every indicators, and you've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of folks in your professional life. What is that little thing that says, I know he can convert to this, and what does that, is it confidence? Is it intelligence? What is that in trait that says, that gives you confidence that he will embrace this job as the CEO of Purdue's football program?
It's a combination, I think, Alan, of all those things. I'm not sure there's a single thing. It's a combination of that intelligence, of that preparation, of that understanding of our situation, but also a humility, that understanding I don't have all the answers. I'm going to need a great staff with me. There are things that I'm going to have to learn and understand here. So he had this, to me, a very appealing combination of intelligence, confidence. There's no doubt he's very sure of himself, but also a recognition that, hey, I'm going to be a first-time head coach. I know I'm going to have to surround myself with people that can help me make the best decisions and move through this in the right way. And here are the things that I've learned. That was one of the really unique things. When he walked us through his coaching experience from beginning at age 24, when he became the youngest assistant in the whole FBS. He talked about each experience that he's had as a coach and what he's taken from those experiences, what he learned from either the environment or the head coach or whatever it might have been that was notable to him. And it was really, I thought it was very impressive and just showed somebody that has had a very intentional process of trying to position himself for this opportunity. This has not happened by accident. This has not happened by good luck on his part. He has consciously worked to put himself in this position, and I think is as prepared as you can be, having not done it before, as anybody could be. What we all had to have a first opportunity to be in charge, and I got one back in 1994. And was I perfect? No, but I had an open mind. I tried to prepare myself very much like Ryan did, but learned along the way. I'm different today than I was then, thank God. And Ryan will be different, 10 years from now than he will be this first year. But the makings and the essence of a great head coach, I'm convinced is in there.
In your 6+, I guess really in your 7th year here in West Lafayette, and you look at that conventional wisdom, those of us that might not have known better said, oh, you got to have an offensive guy. You got to have a guy that throws it up and down the field. Maybe I'll rephrase that to say, is it important at Purdue, as you look at Purdue in the landscape of college football, to have a better or a different mousetrap, meaning maybe it's the young defensive guy, and that's your niche, or is it Jeff Brom, who is an offensive guru? I mean, is that a key ingredient, do you think, to having success, is to be maybe slightly different in your approach and maybe have that competitive advantage because you are different?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that, Alan. I think that's been when we've had our best success in football. It's when we've had something that's a little not ordinary, where we're not just another team to prepare for on the schedule that looks like all the other teams. We're going to bring a wrinkle that's going to cause some challenge for our opponents to prepare for. So as we work through this, just by virtue of the folks that we ended up talking with, I would say it was overwhelmingly, not exclusively, but overwhelmingly offensive type folks were the pool, and that wasn't by design. It was just because that's the folks that we felt were the most realistic possibilities for us. Again, it wasn't exclusive, but it was probably 80+% of them were offensive folks, and liked a lot of them. But at the end of the day, Ryan's makeup, who he was as a person, and the fact that I liked that he's not just a defensive coordinator. He's somebody that has a system and a style that is different, that is unique. And then on that side of the ball will now cause us to be somebody that offenses will have to say, gosh darn, how are we going to deal with that? We're not just going to be a vanilla, one of the regular old defenses that folks see all the time. We're playing cover two and whatever, it's going to be a little bit different. So I like that part. And I like the fact that he has clearly been recognized, and the numbers speak for themselves as somebody that's developed something that is really, really effective. At the same time, once we started to move down the path with Ryan, we were very clear that, offense and offensive uniqueness has been a hallmark of what we've done here at Purdue when we've had our best success, and that we don't want to lose that. We don't want to become a team that, just tries to get to the next defensive possession and, try to find a way to score, with all due respect to our colleagues out in Iowa, to try and turn them over and kick a couple field goals and win 9-6. And that's not what we're ultimately, shooting for here. We want to win, and I don't really care what the score is, but at the end of the day, having for the first time, the unique ability, the first time in a long time, to have something on both sides of the ball that's problematic for our opponents. So, bringing Graham Harrell in as the offensive coordinator, who brings a very high-powered offensive philosophy and effective offensive philosophy, couple that with the very unique defensive scheme and successful defensive scheme that Ryan's run, to me gives us maybe the first really two-way go from a football perspective that we've had in some time. And I really, that is appealing to me, and I'm anxious to see how that plays out.
He obviously, and we haven't seen, I don't think, all the contract details, but he has negotiated, or the plan is also to really increase the size of the assistant coach pool in terms of salaries. Talk about what that says about him, but also what that says about what you think you need to stay competitive here in West Lafayette in football.
Yeah. That was definitely part of it, and that was actually in the plan with Jeff. Had Jeff stayed here, we would absolutely had conversation about really trying to build out a staff that was, again, as I look back at Jeff's time with us, Jeff is a brilliant offensive football coach. Period, and he just is, and he also understands the other side of the ball really effectively. And as 2 months before the end of the season, or maybe a month and a half before, he and I had a fairly substantive conversation about, hey, when this season's over, I want us to sit down and really organizationally figure out what we need to do to bring the rest of our operation up to the level that you operate at. I mean, you're up here in terms of a play caller and a strategist from a football perspective, but do we have an organization that is functioning at that same level? If you're at a 9, maybe everything else feels more like it's at a 6. Or how do we get everything else up to a 7, 8, 9 to match your ability? So that was part of our thinking, had Jeff stayed or not. But clearly, as we turn the page, we wanted to give whoever our new head was going to be, the resources and the ability to go out and attract people that can really build out a first-class organization. And Ryan has done that on the coaching side. We're doing it on the support staff side. And so I think it's playing out the way that it needs to for us to have a chance to be successful going forward.
Part of that also is building an environment, and there's work going right outside your window, literally. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's going on. Very ambitious to, obviously the tunnel, the south end zone, all this parts of this project for Ross-Ade Stadium, not to mention Cherry Lane and a premier golf facility as well, clubhouse. But talk a little bit about that and that importance, and how in the heck, I still don't know how you're going to get it done before September the 2nd or whatever date it is that you open up next year.
Yep, I think it is. It's exciting to me to see the work that's going on. They're hard at it. Our general contractor, AECom Hunt, they're pros in this area. They've done this all around the country, honestly, around the world, at lots of different facilities. And we're relying clearly on their professional expertise and ability, and their representation that they can bring back. They can bring home the football specific pieces of this in time for next season, and that being the south end zone and the tunnel construction. And I see lots of things going on already that give me confidence that can happen. The dining facility on the North Plaza, that's not scheduled to be done until January of 24. I think there's just supply chain lead time issues with kitchen equipment and other things that are just going to push that back a little bit, but that's not critical to pulling off the football season. That's an important part of our future, but it's not something that's game day critical. And so, focusing the attention on making sure those game day related pieces are in place is the way Hunt's approach this. And I think that's the only way you get a chance to get it done on such an aggressive timeline.
Yeah, and it is going to make a difference in a lot of different ways. That tunnel is just intriguing, not only from a safety standpoint, but I think also from an atmosphere standpoint, it's going to be really fun.
Yep, I agree. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see. I mean, when you start digging underneath a roadway and all that, and all the engineers have said, hey, there's nothing down. We're not going to run into anything. There's no this, that, or I'll believe that when I see it. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. You've been around the block on these projects, and they never go exactly as you plan.
No, sir.
All right, we're down to a couple of minutes here, and it's silly to almost ask this question, but the wonderful world of transfer portal and NIL. Just talk a little bit about with NIL, just where not only Boilermaker Alliance is, but where you feel that the department is and your entire program is in this ever-changing move the goalpost type environment.
Sure. I think I like where we are. I would tell you that I think there's a clear recognition that we need to continue to grow and make progress in that area to support the efforts, particularly on the football side, of what Ryan and his staff feel is necessary and important for us to not be the leaders in this world, but to be competitive and to make sure that we don't lose out on players that otherwise have every reason to be here at Purdue, that we just don't flat not present them with a competitive or at least a reasonably competitive set of circumstances that would cause them to have a thought other than being at a place that makes great sense for them. So we're working closely with the Alliance folks, and to the extent that we can't do it. They've got to do this independently of us, and so we've worked hard to maintain a sort of an arm's length, but a clear avenues of communication that make sure that we all understand sort of where we're going. I think it's without a doubt been apparent early on that Ryan and his philosophy is going to be more aggressive, more using NIL and wanting NIL to be a factor in our recruiting as we move forward than maybe we were previously, but maybe some more so just because that environment has evolved to a point where that it has become a reality. So we are working really hard to make sure that we're positioned to execute on that in ways that matter. The transfer piece, the first wave of transfers, the calendar was not our friend with all that, particularly with the start of school and all. I think you'll see more activity as we move through the next window at the end of the semester. There'll probably be some more activity coming out of spring ball and wrapping up the semester. So but I know that there's a tremendous amount of evaluation and sort of roster study going on by Ryan and his staff right now.
Yeah, it allows you to sleep so well at night because it's all been determined. Will this, I guess, from an NIL world, do you see, and you've seen change, and maybe not as much as you've seen the last 2 years in college athletics over the year, do you see a settling down of this in a period, in a 2 to 3 year period where this will come to a place where we college athletics can manage this in a reasonable spot?
You know what? I remain, maybe I'm hopelessly idealistic when it comes to that, but yes, I do. And I certainly hope that that's the case. I would tell you, Alan, I've said this repeatedly, and there's lots of my colleagues that would say the same thing. Lots of what gets, reported, social media and otherwise is pure nonsense. I mean, it is, in fact, we've had a couple of circumstances where I know Ryan has told players that purport to have been, approached with these outlandish offers. Well, get that in writing. Make sure that that's something that's got some substance and some teeth to it, because you can say anything.
Yeah,
people can make these, hey, if you come here, you'll get X. And then all of a sudden, well, it's not going to be X, it's going to be X minus something, or maybe X minus X. It could be nothing. And so I think there's just sort of a disinformation world that has existed, and that to me will be part of us ultimately moving towards a more normalized situation when people realize that all these breathless accounts of these miraculous dollars that are being spread all over the place really aren't so. But again, for us, we want to do what we can do here at Purdue, be as competitive as we can be in a substantive and real way. We never want to be the school that promises and doesn't deliver. And that is a starting point for us. And I think, Matt Painter's that way. Ryan Walters is that way. Jeff Brown was the same way. We don't ever want to be somebody that says, that can't write, purports to write a check that we can't cash. And so that's sort of the Purdue approach to it.
All right, we could do a whole show on this, but last question. You've worked in the fundraising world in your professional life. You're still working in it in terms of raising money for college athletics. That balance between NIL and that, do you think Purdue is Purdue's had a lot of support over the years, certainly. How does it sit in the marketplace with that? But also, how do you reconcile that to where you got a donor that wants to give to NIL, but also you need support for facilities down the road? And you got 30 seconds to answer this question. No, you got as much time as you need. Go ahead.
Sure. I think we just have to be completely transparent with what our priorities are. For all time and going forward, there will always be new and emerging priorities that we'll have here in athletics, or across the university. New things will come up as things that are important at this moment in time. Well, that's what NIL is right now. It is an emerging priority and an emergent priority. It's here. So it is now, amongst the things that we would encourage people that want to support our athletic program to consider. Our existing priorities haven't gone anywhere. We still want to fund scholarships. We need to fund annual operations. We need to do capital projects that matter and have an impact on our program. But we also need to be competitive in the NIL space. So, there will be folks that will resonate with them, and they'll want to maybe not do other things, but to really do that because it's direct support to student athletes, and that means something to some people. Others will not like that and will want to continue to do scholarship and or capital projects and or JPC annual memberships, and those are all legitimate personal decisions that people get to make. But we want to present the name, image, likeness as an opportunity that at this moment in time matters to us and has an impact on the trajectory of our program going forward. So we're not going to ignore it nor look at it as a threat to what we're doing. It's an addition to what we're already doing.
All right, well said, and I appreciate your candor on a challenging subject, to say the least. All right, Mike. Our next guest is somebody you know well as well. Mike DeCourcy will join us for segment 3, but he told me some great stories about when your days in Xavier and your relationship over the years. But we appreciate you, Mike Bobinski, for your time and your insight into this. And we will be back in a couple minutes. As I said, Mike DeCourcy will join us, we're going to talk a little Purdue basketball as well. So thanks to State Farm agent Trent Johnson and Triple X, and to Mike Bobinski. Hey, Mike, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Ellen. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.